Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to how to airbrush a realistic sort of feather. Now there's loads of ways you can paint feathers using the airbrush. You could do it straight down onto your piece of paper and go in freehand and do it, or if you wanted to get it so it was really nice and sharp, you can go this way, which we're going to do today is application tape. Now I've got a piece of application tape on my paper here. Now what I've done off camera is I've sourced an image on Google, say like this feather here that you can see in the screen, projected it up onto a piece of application tape. Now application tape's a paper transfer tape which has got a low tack on the back, and you can basically pencil or use a biro over the top. So I've gone around the shape of the feather, not done the full details, but sort of gone in the little bits where the feather has them little edges that sort of flick in. Drew that out on the application tape. Now what I'll do is next is put this over onto a cut mat, cut round it, and then cut the centre out, and then use these as shields to put back over my piece of paper. Now projected it on, remove this, and then I've got the same image, just left the projector in the same place, and then went over and penciled some of the details in underneath on the paper with pencil. And I've got some little locating marks, so once we've cut this out I can place this back on, level it up to my locating marks there, and we've got the sort of outlines matched. Working this way, you can concentrate on the centerpiece. You could leave this piece on, pull that centerpiece out, start working your details in on this, and then you could remove this piece and then work on the outer feather and leave this piece in to shield that so you don't get any overspray over that. So you can keep your image nice and tight and work with application tape around it, and it keeps it off the outer of your paper and just keeps it nice and clean and sharp. We've got a drop shadow on this as well underneath, so we can go in on that on freehand because the feather's sort of raised up and the shadow's lower down. It's a lot softer on the drop shadow, so you've not really got to put the same details in on the shadow below. That's sort of like a blown out shadow there to where the feather is higher up. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to take you through this process. The brush that we're using today is going to be the new Harder and Steenbeck Evolution 2024. Now the reason why I've picked this up to do this, it's a great detail brush on a 0.28, so we can get them real nice fine sort of tight details, some nice transitions, soft transitions with it. It's easy to clean again because it's one of the new H&S's, so they're like really easy to clean because the triggers go further back so you can dump your paint out quicker, and it's a fast brush, and that's why I'm using this one today. Paints we're going to be using mixed bag again, guys. This is basically sort of like a black feather with sort of white and grey tones in it. So we've got some golden high flow carbon black. We're going to mix the golden range that I've got basically 1:1, so 1 drop of distilled water to 1 drop of paint. So I've got that one in the golden range. We've got a transparent shading grey. We've got a number 5 mixed on a grayscale. So this image of a grayscale value finder, this is where I sort of mix my value set to. So I've got this full set mixed to that scale. So I picked a number 5. I've also got a value 9, which is sort of close to white, right next to white. So we've got that one. I've got some white Comart, going to use that. And I've also got some Createx Illustration Payne's Grey. We're going to use that. So they're the colours we're going to chuck in on this. Some of the pieces we're going to use as well, if you want to get your really fine little flick outs, you don't have to do everything with an airbrush. We're going to be using a water-based black pencil, a normal HB pencil, just to get some of them real fine little strands that come out. We've got two erasers. I've got a Tombow retractable eraser, and I've got a Castle Fibre, I think this is, Fibre Castle soft eraser. We've got a scalpel to get some of the real sharp white highlights, and I've also got some wire, and I've stripped back the wire, and then you can move the wire to what you want and then hold it up and then spray on the wire, and it will give you that real sharp nice texture, so we can use that as well. So basically on this, because this is going to be time lapses, this is going to be sort of a black with a grey with a white sort of feather. The first thing you're going to see me do is I'll chop this out off camera, and we're going to do the centre part of the feather here, the sort of stalk bit that goes through, I'd say. We're going to start painting this and make this sort of look round. So you'll do your darks. We're looking at a light source coming in at this angle. So when you look at your image, always first look at where your light source is coming in. On this image, the light source is coming this way because we've got the drop shadow just here. So your highlights will be on the top edge of this stalk bit going through the centre. And then you will sort of round it off, so you will shade closer to this bottom edge and put your textures in. So always think of where your light source is coming in on your image and where your shadows are and things like that. So I'll chop this out, drop you in the first time lapse. I'll put the colours that I'm using to the side of the screen, air pressure, things like that. And then when I change over a colour, or if I'm using a texture, a certain texture, I'll just drop it in the screen, but I will pause through each section and then talk you through the bits along the way. So enjoy the video. It's going to be quite a long one. I will see you lot in the first time lapse. Right guys, a little talk through. I'm going to give you a real zoom in on this in a minute so you can see the textures and things that I put in, because the distance you can't see, it just looks like a blank line in the centre. Now in that time lapse we had application tape here and here, and I pulled the centre piece out of the feather and worked that centre piece in. Now I started off with a value 5 and just basically dusted a value 5 in. Then I went in with some Createx illustration, and where you've got that centre line, you're aiming to darken out the top edge and the bottom edge, but right close to the application tape, so it leaves you sort of like a high point in the middle, so it makes it look sort of like a shape. Went in with the Createx illustration, dusted a bit of that in, then I went in with a bit of black and just put a little bit of black on the edge. And then just went in and just sort of done some little textures, scratching back to the paper underneath and just dropping some little highlights in. Some little random textures like that over the centre, because when you look at the centre of feathers, it's like a little hollow tube. We used to play with them when we were kids. We used to strip them and it's like a hollow tube, like feels like a little plastic tube. They're all sort of like little highlight lines and little textures in there. So I've dropped a load of them in there. I'll bring the camera in and just move the camera and you'll see the textures on this piece. There you go guys, it gives you a little bit more of an understanding of, see the little sort of scratch backs and textures and the different shades of colour as you go up the centre of that. So you're aiming to get that nice and easy to do, it really is, because you're just pulling the centre out of that feather and you want to sort of create a little high point in the top, like we've achieved there. But that just gives you a close-up look of what we've just done. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is the centrepiece that we cut out, we're going to put back on and shield off this centrepiece here, because we don't want any overspray going over that. We want to keep that as it is. Nice and clean. We've done the details on it, we've put the sharpness in. We're going to cover that piece up and then we're going to work on the actual feather itself. Now I'm going to do this exactly the same way. We're going to go in with the 5, going to go in with the Createx, and we're going to go in with the black. Now on this feather, you've got to imagine where the light source is coming in here. You can make these edges look like they're sort of rolled down. So you could put your darks in here and then put a higher light piece on the top here. You could do the same here. You could slightly roll these edges over by darkening these edges off and creating the feather to make it look sort of like it folds over on itself. So you basically, the easiest way to start to colour this in is with the airbrush. You can do like a dagger stroke where you will do that sort of technique, and you can create the points. So make your starting point the centerpiece, where that line is there, where you've got the application tape that's going to go over that and cover that piece you've just painted. That could be your starting point, and then you can bring your feather strands out like this, going up the feather from the center. And you can do the half moons like this on the dagger stroke and just create that nice soft flick. Just follow the shape from the center out, from the center up like that. And when you start putting your passes in, then you can come back on yourself this way with another colour and flick that way. So you're coming from this side of the application tape and flicking in this way with another colour, and then you can bring another colour in this way from the centre again, and that's how you can create that shape with a highlight to the top. Working with the grey first, dropping that first light tone in, and then going with the Createx. The Createx is a transparent, this one's an opaque, so this will put an opaque colour down first, and then the illustration will go over the top as a transparent. We can work that and put layers in. Then we can drop the black opaque in to start blackening off, and then we can erase and scratch back into it to get them real fine sharp highlights that you get in feathers, because feathers are very, very textured all the way through. They're like thousands and thousands of little tiny little lined hairs that go up. If you imagine a bunch of hairs that are close together, similar sort of effect you get with hair textures. You're doing the same sort of thing, but with a feather you're sort of working that way, and just create the shapes, put the highlights in. You'll see it come together. I'll time lapse this piece. You'll see the colours at the side of the screen that I'm dropping in, and then you'll see how I do the textures in the time lapse and just work it along. Nice and easy, guys, because we've got application tape around it, so you've not got to worry about getting this edge to look perfect, because we can sort that out a bit later on. Once we move this, we can then scratch back from this piece of the paper into the artwork and create some real nice finishing edges on this feather. So I'll see you in the next time lapse. We'll get this centre bit done, and then I'll give you a close up with the textures. Right, there you go, guys. We've got the feather in. Now, I'll talk you through the time lapse. We had the outer mask on, and then I put that centre one on just to cover that centre piece in there, and then just started working the shapes. You see me doing dagger strokes from the centre across, following the shapes, and then doing this way. Went in with the number 5, went in with Creatix illustration, went in with black, and then I finished off with a sepia and just sort of browned off the edges and a little bit in the centre and just put a little bit of warmth into it. Few scratch backs to put some highlights in, and that'll do for the feather. Now when I demasked it, I went in with, you can go in with a pencil just to get some real fine tips of the feather bits coming off at the end, so you can just sort of flick them out from your darks and just give that little bit of texture around the edge. Now the next thing we're going to do is the drop shadow. So I've got like an outline of a drop shadow here. We're going to go in with a dark here because this is closer, so this will be darker, and it'll sort of soften out and mottle out as it goes to the edge at the back. We'll use a transparent shading grey, we'll use a black but go in very, very lightly. So we'll drop that piece in, and then we're going to make it look really cool. So let's get this piece in here. I'll see you in the next time lapse. There you go guys, we've got the drop shadow in, nice and simple, a little bit darker and sharper here because it's closer to it, and as it comes out just start to feather it out and soften the edge up. And that's the beauty about the airbrush, you can get them nice soft transitions across here. So we've got the feather in, and now we can make it look really, really cool. We're going to add a few bits to it. I'm going to do this off camera, and then I'll show you the finished piece when it's done. See you in a bit. Right guys, I've done a little bit extra. I'm going to lay it on the table, and now this is going to blow you away how this looks. So I've just done a few lines on it to make it look like an old school piece of paper and chopped a few bits out. So if I lay that down now, that gives you the full-on 3D look, like that feather is floating. And to make it look even cooler, we painted it with the evolution. So thanks for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed the video on painting a feather. This just gives it that more of a 3D pop. We've used the Harder and Steam evolution. Drop your comments. If you're new to the channel, click that subscribe, press that notification, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.